name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside my co-pilot. I've got Joe Blewett from Jets X Factor back again. Joe, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, man. I'm excited the season's over. I'm not necessarily excited the way it ended necessarily. We kind of expected that. Got some drinks, got some college football playoffs on, the natties on. So we're gonna be watching that a little bit on the side. Oh, yeah. Excited to be back with you again. Last week was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, we're excited. Joe's got his game on the phone. I got my game on over at the side. We're going to be watching some of these prospects. There's a few playing tonight that the Jets may be interested in. But the main goal for tonight is to just kind of talk a little bit about the Jets season and everything that went on and just sort of hand out some grades and talk a little bit about that. So I guess let's just clear the air. Yesterday's game, I don't know about you, Joe, but I want to just crinkle it up and just throw it in the garbage. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for the most part you can. And Zach had a few up and downs that game, but for the most part, when you're working with an offensive line that got absolutely abused, when you have running backs who are falling down out of the backfield, when you have receivers who can't catch the ball, when you're down your top 4 receivers, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. Denzel Mims coming in again and getting a false start or legal motion, wherever the hell that was. No running game. He played okay in that situation to good. So that's fine. And everything else other than that, there really wasn't much to evaluate from the young guys. So it was a shitty game. We expected a shitty game. Zach Wilson didn't look terrible. And that's kind of all we could hope for at that point, versus a number 1 defense in the league fighting to win the AFC, raucous environment with shitty weather. What could you really expect from that game? So yeah, it's kind of like you said, crinkle up, toss it out.
Yeah, we had one extra year of 16-game schedule. That's how we got to think about this right now. Forget that last game. But let's jump into some of our gradings. So the first group I want to look at is going to be the special teams and how we feel Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh kind of handled that. We wound up going through 3 kickers this year. We had Amendola. Was it Kessman was the name? And Pinheiro. Those are our 3 kickers for this past year. So, Joe, I guess your thoughts on the Jets kicking situation and how would you grade maybe that area?
C-, C+, C. It's just because Amendola was so bad for the beginning, mm-hmm. and he was kind of he wasn't the worst kicker we ever seen. He wasn't 𝐉𝐞𝐭𝐬 bad. Yeah. But then Pinheiro came in the last couple of weeks. He's been hitting 50-yarders and pretty consistently. I know his kicks are kind of weird and ugly, but they still go in. So as long as they go in, I don't give a shit how they get in there. So I guess a C+, and that's kind of from Amendola being a D- and Pinheiro being a B+.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I'd go because I liked Amendola's kickoffs a lot. I thought he had a strong leg. I didn't feel like his misses were that bad, but they were just way too shaky, 40 yards and out, and you just can't have that. I'd rather have a consistent 45 and in than maybe the ability to kick a 55-yarder. I would say C+ because of the way it ended. And now maybe I guess you could probably weigh it on almost a curve, right? Okay, well, we started off real bad, but we finished with a perfect kicker aside from, 1 missed extra point. I don't know. Do you think Pinheiro's the kicker for next year, or do you think they try to bring in competition? I know Amendola is still on the practice squad. I think I'd like to see those two maybe compete next year.
Yeah, I would say that they bring in competition still. I get that Pinheiro was good for 4 or 5 weeks, 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. But that's still not a large enough sample size. We've seen plenty of kickers short or kick for 4 weeks and still and show promise for those 4 or 5 weeks, whatever it may be. But we're not bringing competition for a guy who's off the streets would be a mistake. It's really not that hard to bring in a kicker to camp. So it's not like a quarterback who's going to mess up his mental or anything like that. Just bring in a damn kicker. So I don't think he's earned the lockdown spot. I would say he's probably the favorite just based on he's been kicking, but yeah, you can't just give it to him.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair pretty fair assessment. We've gone through 9 kickers since 2019. Is it 19 or 7? I think it's 17. 2017. We've gone through 9 kickers. I just want to know that we are in good shape.
And I had the whole conspiracy theory. I don't know if you heard it, but I want to hear it. I've been saying it for a while. It's been a little bit, and I was basically just saying that well, one, the logical way to look at it is that Joe Douglas is just bad at bringing in kickers, and it's been an oversight. But my conspiracy theory is that he knows the Jets aren't really competing. It's something that fans won't really crush him for. So if a kicker loses him a game, he's okay with it because he gets better draft position, and in the future when they're actually competing, then he will bring in a good kicker. So that's the conspiracy theory, that he's getting some losses for the Jets with the kicker position on purpose.
I don't think that's a conspiracy theory at all. I think you're actually spot on. I do. No. I'm dead serious. I think that is legitimately like, I don't think he's necessarily trying to lose games, but I don't think he's trying to invest in the position right now. Like almost the same way with the defense, where you kind of like, you build your offense and you can score a bunch of points. You can kind of figure it out. Not that the Jets scored a bunch of points, but you can build it up, but you're going to lose games by way of your defense because you're just going to give up so much. So you're going to get a higher draft pick. Like that's why it wouldn't shock me too much if we wound up seeing some additional offense this offseason and only just like sort of piece in the defense where we can still lose a few games. Maybe we're going somewhere in that 7-10 to 9-8 sort of range next year. That I think would be ideally where we'd like to be competing for a playoff hunt. I want to see the Jets picture in the hunt next year. So I don't think you're wrong. I do think there's some truth to that. Now, as far as punter goes, we had 2 punters this year. We started with man. He gets hurt first game of the season. We go to Morstead, and then we go back to man sometime around like week 12 or something like that. And it's sort of a tale of two halves because Morstead really played well. I think he wound up finishing, well, according to Pro Football Focus, they graded him out as the 6th best punter, but he was on Atlanta for the last half of the season. So I don't know how those grades kind of shake out either way. Man, I thought was shaky to start and got better as he kind of got healthier, if that makes sense. We saw a few clunkers towards the end of the season, but he did have a nice booming, I think it was 63-yard punt. I would say punter-wise on the season, I would give us B-. B? I think inside the 20, I thought we're halfway decent this year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would say Morstead was more consistent than man, which is a concern when he's a 5th or 6th round pick, man.
Yeah,
6th. 6th. So and when he has huge leg, and you'll see games with 3-4 punts inside the 20, you'll also have that 20-yard, 30-yard shank. Not so much as the Bills kicker or the Bills punter last week, watching that game, but he still has those kicks that can't happen for a punter in the NFL. And sometimes you see him kind of outkick his coverage, and not just in terms of distance, but in terms of the hang time on it, where he's line driving it and giving guys plenty of time, obviously, to receive the ball and then run with it. So I think man is a C+. I don't think he's really been great. I think that in terms of consistency, Morstead was better, and I would even say that Lackland Edwards was even to that level or better. So he's been definitely disappointing for me, especially when you're drafting a punter. Like, you're expecting him to be, like legitimately like top 10, like at least. Yeah. Like he came in, I was watching highlights of punters on freaking YouTube, booming the ball. It was him and somebody else, and he was just throwing missiles into the air. I was like, holy shit, this guy's gonna be a top 5 punter. I don't know how it doesn't translate, but apparently it doesn't. So yeah, he's been but yeah, B- because I guess Morstead for those couple of games, but hopefully, I guess he could develop kicking a ball. I don't know.
That brings us to our kick and punt returner and Braxton Berrios, giving my boy an A+. I loved it. I thought he was one of the best, if not the best, returner this year on a consistent basis. It felt like anytime he had his hands on the ball, he wasn't fumbling on punts, and he wasn't, going before the 25-yard line. I think his average kick return was like 30+ yards. So pretty positive there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, he's an A, for sure. A+. I think he's top at least 5 or 3 in kick return yardage and punt return yardage. Didn't have a fumble in either. So you're talking about consistency of holding onto the ball and consistency of getting yards, knowing when to catch the ball, knowing when to fair catch. He's been excellent, and that's why people are talking about him being replaceable. I saw something in the chat say he's replaceable. He, in terms of his offensive perspective, being a backup slot, being a gadget guy, that's what I think he is. I think he is replaceable on offense. In terms of special teams, it's not that easily replaceable. So, and again, with that being an A plus, that's why it's not yet as easy. We had Andre Roberts, but who before that was that A plus level player? I don't think we really had one. We had Jeremy Curley for a while. We had guys like Jalen Marshall back there, I think, for a couple of games. We had who was that guy from the Broncos who thought was gonna be good? Holiday, I think his name was.
Yep.
We've had some really bad returners. So while he's replaceable on offense, he's not replaceable on special teams. So
yeah, and that's something that Boyer has actually done well. This is his third regime that he's with, and I feel like our special teams has been pretty good the last 2 years or so. So yeah, I like what we've gotten out of that. Our buddy Pooch Guy drops in with a super chat. Thank you so much, Pooch. He says, I live in upstate New York. Let us know where, because I'm actually curious. I went to school in Binghamton, New York. And he says, the beat had me in a toxic place these last few years, but you guys have pulled me out of it. Thank you. Boycott the beat, my friends. That's exactly why we started these YouTube channels. It's just one of those things that we feel like we know more. The people that sit here and watch the game every single day, we dissect every single play. And, we try to look at everything through green-colored shades, so at least it's in a positive spin. You don't have to be ripping on us. We know we haven't won a Super Bowl in 50-plus years. But yeah, Joe, your thoughts on toxic media?
It's bad, man. Again, it's just that people need clicks. So you have to be overly negative or overly positive. It's hard to be positive when the team is 4-12. So they're gonna steer to be overly negative. I think when the Jets are competing for the playoffs, they'll most likely be overly positive about some things. So it just is what it is. But like you said, I think the guys like you and the stream you do with Green Bean and Matt, listen to you guys and 𝐗-𝐅𝐸𝐿 and all those guys, and you'll get better information, because those guys are, some of them are good, most of them aren't. And then you have the guys on SNY who are obviously just ill-informed and looking for a hot take. So there's a reason I don't follow a lot of people on Twitter. There's a reason you don't hear me talk about the beat. There's a reason you don't hear me talk about ESPN or SportsCenter or NFL Network, because I don't follow any of that shit. I just don't. I'm kind of in the darkness with all that stuff, because I couldn't care any less about anything to say. So that's my opinion.
I love it. Joe blew it off the grid. All right, let's jump into our next position group. We're talking about the defense now. Let's talk a little defensive line. We'll start there. Carl Lawson, Vinny Curry both go down for the year at the beginning of the season. We bring in Sheldon Rankins. We had Foley Fatukasi, Quinnen Williams. We had Bryce Huff in his second year. John Franklin Myers winds up getting an extension after the first or second game, third game, I think. So what were your thoughts overall on the Jets defensive line, and how would you kind of grade them?
Yeah, we're starting off kind of bad here, because and to preface this, we said that it was grades based on expectations. So it's not grades just, okay, yes, the defensive line is probably better than, let's say the corners, but based on expectation, I expected this to be a top 10 line, top 5 with Carl Lawson. But even with Lawson out, I expected to be top 10. And based on some of the numbers they put up this year, based on the run defense, which I think people, fail to realize that in a 4-3, a lot of that emphasis does go on to the linebackers and safeties. That's why it's a little bit different, but still they were disappointed in the run game aspect. There's plenty of games where quarterbacks are standing with plenty of time. Say what you want about the pressure numbers, the hit numbers, whatever it is. A lot of it does come down to sacks, and I didn't see a lot of quarterbacks getting moved. So whoever produces those pressure numbers, I don't agree with them. So I would say the defensive line's like a D. That's probably the worst group of the year relative to expectations. Obviously, they're a lot better than that, but yeah, probably D. Q didn't make the leap I thought he was going to make. JFM, after getting paid, had some pressures and things like that, but really didn't sack the quarterback. Sheldon Rankins was hot and cold. Foley Fatukasi, while he had some dominant plays, he wasn't the Foley Fatukasi of years past, which is expected. You're taking a 3-4 run stuffing 0 tech and trying to play him as a penetrating 2i 3 tech. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. That's probably why they're not going to pay him. So yeah, it's a D.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I would fall as well, based on expectations, because we were really expecting this to be a fierce defensive line. It was going to be the strongest unit on our team. We pumped some resources into it with Rankins and Curry and Lawson and Quinnen, and it just didn't work out that way due to injury. I think this team's really going to get a shot in the arm. I think this is going to be the most improved group going into next year with Lawson and possibly a top number 4 overall edge rusher. We'll see. I think there's definitely – it's going to be nice to get that additional edge rusher and kind of slide John Franklin Myers back inside. I think he'll have a lot more success playing next to Quinnen inside as opposed to trying to get that bend on the outside.
Yeah, he's like 80% of himself outside. Like he's still a good D end outside, but he showed flashes of being great inside at 3 tech, kind of using that length and athleticism versus guards, but he doesn't have that athleticism, that plus athleticism as a D end where he does inside. And his he's not the best athlete in terms of him versus tackles. Like he doesn't have that bend, like you said, to bend the arc as they call it. So he was out of positions. Foley, I don't see him being back. And then what happens with Rankins too, because he's owed about $6 million and he was a little bit disappointing. And this is something that people don't want to talk about, which we will in the future, I'm sure, in terms of draft shows. But if you don't have Rankins back, you don't have Foley back. People are gonna hate this, but they might invest the top 3-round, 4-round pick in a D tackle because they really don't have anybody past that in terms of a run stuffing nose tackle because Nathan Shepard might not be back. Jalen Marshall is not a run stuffer, so you don't really have that guy. So it's something that they might look to do. So it'll be interesting. But like you said, Lawson coming back, Huff being hopefully more healthy. He was in and out a lot of the year. And then hopefully drafting a guy, maybe trading for Daniel Hunter. I saw some rumors about that today, which obviously it's rumor mill. It's who cares at this point. But investing a top flight edge rusher, getting Q back and Lawson, or not Q back. Q going into his 4th year, having to prove something, and getting Lawson back. Hopefully the defensive line takes that leap to be that top 5 to 10 unit because last year they're definitely way under that. They're definitely disappointing.
Yeah, 100%. We're watching the game a little bit. It looks like Georgia just had a touchdown pulled off the board. Call was reversed. Alabama's driving in Georgia territory on the 45. Next position group I want to talk about is the linebackers. C.J. Mosley, our first free agent signing. Jarrad Davis. You pick up Quincy Williams on waivers. Nasseraldine and Sherwood both had a little bit of time at the linebacker position. Sherwood winds up tearing an Achilles. This was a very frustrating group. I was happy to see CJ kind of back after 2 years, but I kind of am looking forward to next year, like after next year's season when we can kind of move on from him and sort of really get some speed back there. I think he is a good leader for the locker room, and I'm glad he's going to be back next year, but I think we're going to need to infuse this unit in particular with some talent, whether that be through free agency or the draft. I would say we probably want to look at Atlanta and see what linebackers might be hitting free agency with the Ulbrich connection. Maybe there's some guys that he'd want to bring in from over there.
Yeah, I think their starting linebacker, name is like a 𝐗-𝐿 or whatever it is a free agent who's a really speedy guy.
Yep. Yeah, I would think he will probably be pretty high up on our list, considering Ulbrich was the linebackers coach down in Atlanta. So for me, I think if I'm grading this unit, I'm going to say, I don't want to say F, but I'm going to say D-. This was maybe, okay, you know what? If it's relative to expectation.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I think that's the key. Because I wasn't expecting a linebacker to be good anyway. So maybe I say C+ based on that. Like it doesn't, I don't know. This looked like a group that was going to be in a world of hurt with CJ missing those 2 years. You didn't know how he was going to respond. Was hoping Jarrad Davis would show us something. He gave us nothing. Quincy Williams is fun and he's a heat-seeking missile, but he's not quite the starting linebacker you want him to be. So where do you fall in the linebacker group?
Yeah, I think I just get like a flat C. And if you go through like individually, like, and that's because CJ Mosley, I would say he probably met my expectations. I don't think he was as good as he was with the Ravens as those days, but I think he was slightly a step down. But he's still good. Like he's still a good player, but it's hard to be CJ Mosley. And there were specifically some plays I highlighted a couple of weeks ago where like he's on the front side of a duo play. which is really conducive to getting, offensive linemen on the second level after their double team blocks. And he's playing both sides of a double team block because I don't think he trusts the guys on the backside so he can shoot the front side. So like I see some hesitancy in him, and I think that's because he knows what he's working with. But based on expectations, I think he met my expectations where some people were kind of down on him, but he's always been more of a guy who's been a plus player because of his mental, not his athleticism. And he has decent athleticism, but it's because of mental. I don't think he really lost that. So I think CJ Mosley met expectations. Jarrad Davis was an absolute dud of a signing. That guy made no impact at all unless he was getting, beat. That's the only time we really saw him. Nasruddin, I think, has a decently high ceiling. I'm okay with that pick, but he didn't do anything this year. Sherwood went out week
Early.
4.
Yeah.
Week 4-ish, and I hated that pick. So he did nothing. So you have 2 rookies who did absolutely nothing. You have Jarrad Davis who did nothing. Who got signed for $7-ish million. You have Mosley who met expectations, and I'll say Quincy Williams. While I don't think he's a starter, I think for a waiver wire pickup who got cut by the Jags, he exceeded expectations. But people they automatically think like a player who exceeds expectations, or like I say, Brandon Echols is a good 6th-round pick means he's a starter. Mm-hmm. I don't think that those are one and the same. I think that he's a solid backup player. I don't think you can rely on him consistently. You saw the one long run the first long run that the Bills had. Quincy completely over pursued on the backside, so he's way too high and low. But he's still over. He still exceeded his expectations. So yeah, like flat C minus. But that's definitely a group that I think people are overlooking. Or at least some are overlooking in terms of like listing the Jets' needs, and they completely skip over linebacker. Like, dude, we have 1 starting linebacker. We need probably 2 more. Maybe 1, but that depends. Obviously, you'd prefer 2. So yeah, flat C minus.
What do you think the chances are? We got Nakobe Dean playing tonight in Georgia. Guy is awesome. he is a wild linebacker. I would have no problem with the Jets looking to pick him up, whether it be with the 10th pick or maybe if they were to trade back up in some capacity, or trade down from 4, wind up in the mid-teens, somewhere along there. I don't know where he ends up going, but based on power rankings, it looks like he's somewhere around that 10 to 15-ish range. Any thoughts on drafting a linebacker high?
It's possible. Like people, I think they get too kind of like, I don't have a good term for it. Maybe it's the high noon stalking, but like balls deep in like positional value. But if there's a really good linebacker there, and he's an A+ on your board, and then the next important position is a corner who's a B+, are going to take the A+ linebacker or the B+ corner. Like it's an interesting discussion. So based on where I've been seeing him kind of falling to, it seems like middle teens type deal. So if Joe Douglas was to trade down, let's say from 10 to 16, he's there, that's fine. If he takes him at 10, I trust him. But linebacker is a massive need. They don't have another starting linebacker. So if you can get a very good prospect at any position that we need right now, I'm okay with it. Like if you're going to take him over, a safety or a corner, like, yeah, I prefer, a corner or an edge rusher over a linebacker, but if he's the best position on the board at a position need, I'm okay with taking it. So I could see it at the 10th pick. I could see it if they trade down from 4 to the mid-teens, or 10 to the mid-teens, maybe the late teens, the early 20s. People like to act like they know exactly where a guy's going to fall, but they never do. Nobody ever does. So, but with that being said, yeah, I could see it happening. It's one of the top couple of needs on this team. Linebacker, safety, corner, edge rusher on defense are pretty big needs. So it can happen.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know if you guys saw this. 𝐗-𝐅𝐚𝐜 did just mention it in the chat. Geno Smith was banged for a Dewey over in Seattle. Sorry. Thank you for the 1st round pick. Not from Geno, but
Yeah.
Okay. Next defensive group, we're going to be talking. Do we want to split up cornerbacks and safeties, or do we want to just include defensive backs as a whole unit?
I think we should split them up.
Okay. All right. So let's talk cornerbacks first. So going into the year, after the draft, we had Bless Austin on our roster, Bryce Hall coming back for year 2. You have Eccles, who was drafted in rounds 5 or 6, and then Michael Carter was a late round draft pick as well. We did not bring back Brian Poole, who was a top slot corner for us in the past for the last year or 2, whatever his contract was. Who else am I missing from our cornerback room? Am I missing anyone?
You said Hall.
I
You
said
say
Hall.
Eccles.
I said Eccles.
You said
I said
Michael Carter.
Yep.
Dunn.
I didn't say Dunn. I would say based on the hype of Dunn, I was disappointed not to like because it seemed like I don't know if it was rookie training camp or just training camp in general, but it was like it seemed like oh Dunn's getting some starting snaps, and then like you saw him in the preseason, and you're like, why? Like it didn't work. I don't know. What were your thoughts on the DB room?
Yeah, again, this is based on expectations. You know, like my expectations. You look into this cornerback room, and it was Bryce Hall, who, while he had an impressive rookie year, he still was relatively unproven. He was not like necessarily unproven like a UDFA type unproven. It was unproven to me where he had to prove himself that he could be a starter going forward. And he proved to me he could be a starter going forward. I think more of a number 2 starter than a number 1. He's been getting beat up a little bit the last couple of weeks. But with that said, you had Bryce Hall, who I thought could be a number 2. And let's be honest, a bunch of nobodies. Like in the beginning of the year, you had a bunch of 5th and 6th round picks, UDFAs, and we're like, holy shit, we are going to get demolished. And while we still did get demolished in the secondary, it wasn't terrible. Like it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. So you have Hall, who probably met my expectations. You have Eccles, who exceeded my expectations. You're never going to expect, and I'm not even saying that Eccles is a starter. There's some people out in Jets Twitter who think Eccles is a starter. You are mistaken. He's not a starting level player. He's a developmental 4th or 5th guy. He gets beat more than people realize. He got beat on a 3rd and 20 against the Bucks. He's a good developmental guy. But like I said in my stream, if you get a solid number 4 or 5 developmental guy at the 6th round in the draft, that's a slam dunk pick. That's a slam dunk pick. If you get a role player in the 6th round, take it every time. So he exceeded expectations. Michael Carter II looks like a legitimate starting slot corner. Exceeded expectations. Dunn, again, expectations, preseason hype. He's a UDFA, you know. So yeah, he came in, made a few plays. He got beat for a few plays when he had to start. So he was, you know, level, whatever. So they definitely exceeded the expectations overall. I would even say _Ghidri, you know, for a UDFA, you know, 2 years ago, he came in and he was relatively effective. So I would say B+. You know, maybe you could fudge it to an A-, but again, that's not overall ranking of the group. It is based on expectations. There will be that one person who comments, how can you give the corners a B+? We need so much. Based on expectations. My expectations were down here. They were up here. That's a B+ to me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to say A- because I want to have at least an A here. And maybe we'll have another A on the other side of the ball. But we have, you worded it perfectly. Hall was someone that I just wanted to see more of. And I think he met or exceeded expectations this year. I think Eccles, you weren't expecting a whole lot from a late round pick, exceeded expectations. Michael Carter, legit starting slot corner, loved it. And you know, we move on from Bless Austin, which I think was much needed. The love affair with Jet fans and Bless Austin was just palpable throughout the last 2 years.
I was trying to tell people about Bless Austin for years. I shit on that guy consistently. The guy, he's one of the worst corners I've ever seen in my entire life. And then people would go out, and again, the problem with broadcast views and just watching the game is you watch and he stands out for maybe 4 or 5 plays of the game. He makes a hard hit, but then what happens the other 35, 40 plays when he's getting toasted and maybe he's not getting targeted? He was terrible. He is terrible to Seahawks. He will always be bad. He's injured. He seems like a cocky asshole. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. I hate Bless Austin. He's been one of the least favorite players of all time. And he sucks. He sucks. And I told everybody. I tried to tell everybody forever. Nobody listened. Now he's traded. Goodbye.
Peace. Get out of here.
I hate Bless Austin.
Nothing made me happier than watching Seattle just knock down just a few pegs down to the top 10 pick. Thank you.
And then watching their games and seeing him get toasted was great. Which, by the way, we have a comment. I just want to comment on this one real quick.
Yeah.
Mike says, I like Joe. Seems like he knows his stuff, but the grade should be on what he saw, not his expectations. Mike, this is Ryan's show, and I clarified with him he wanted expectations. So yell at Ryan. Yell at Ryan.
He did ask me. And I think with a rebuilding team, I think it's fair to grade them based on expectation as opposed to grading against the rest of the league. Because look, 32nd ranked defense, everyone gets a fucking F. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, like get the fuck out of here. Like, yeah, no, exactly. Like, it'd be a horrible show. We're just gonna F the whole time. No, based on expectations is the way to go. But it's all right. It's all right. All right, let's move to the last position group on the defense, and that's going to be the safety group. We wind up trading away Jamal Adams 2 years ago. Marcus May gets the franchise tag. We draft Ashton Davis last year, 2020. You bring in LaMarcus Joyner from the Raiders. You have basically a bunch of, I don't want to say nobodies, but like Pinnock played a little bit at safety, and like we had Redwine for a little bit. I don't even know who's playing safety at times for the New York Jets. I would say this group across the board, based on expectations, gets an F because of, like, I thought May was going to play well. We lost him week 7, maybe 6 or 7. It was the third. It was the Colts game was when we lost him to the Achilles. And then Joyner, I was so high on Joyner. I really thought we were going to get like a good safety tandem, and to kind of see it just sort of fall apart like pretty early in the season was a little frustrating. So maybe you say like a D-, but I'm giving the safety position an F. What about you?
Yeah, and it's like an interesting conversation because based on expectations, at what point, like when Joyner went out and May went out, like it's if you watch the streams, for whoever doesn't hear, I know some people do. Kyle Smith, like my main co-host, always says like people, if they just agreed on the terms of their argument, wouldn't really argue a lot because people argue without really knowing what they're arguing about. And safeties, it's like if your expectations were that Joyner and May would play the whole year, then easily an F. But they were starting guys like Redwine and Pinnock and a guy who was on the Eagles practice squad in Riley and who was a guy from the Jaguars. I forget his name, Wilson. I think his last name was Wilson. They were literally playing straight free agents 3 days later on the starting team. So, like, yeah, it's an F, but expectations –
yeah,
F?
where do you grade it?
like,
yeah,
like D-. Like they were. It was the worst group in the NFL by far. Like the safeties are terrible. Look at the offense too. There's some other groups that might join them in just being the worst. But like this is why people and Ashton Davis, you can bump that into there. Like he made no leaps forward in my opinion. So yeah, like D, because they brought in straight free agents. But they needed a major infusion of talent because they don't have a starting safety on the team right now. They don't have May. They don't have Joyner. They're both free agents. So people are like, oh, just draft the safety in the 3rd round. What are you talking about? Like, and people are like, oh, well, safety is not valued in the Jet system. I want somebody to explain to me, unless a team runs cover 0, and again, film show, the difference in the safety in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 or 6, 7. They're all different defenses. There are 7s and 5s. People don't really, whatever. With that being said, safety is important in every single defense. So I don't get why people are saying that safety doesn't matter. Safety matters a lot. Now, if it's a safety who's going to cover 3 and is only going to play the curl to flat, okay, I get that. But you still need that guy. So they need a massive infusion of talent here. And yeah, I guess a D because I had no expectations when I'm seeing Sheldon Redwine, Riley, Ashton Davis, and whoever else. Like I don't know. It was bad.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Jets' top picks because you're looking at possibly taking Kyle Hamilton if he is that generational safety, the unicorn caliber prospect that we're hearing about. This guy can play all 3 levels of the defense, which is really impressive. But you're also spending a top 5 pick on this player. So it's like, it's tough. Maybe if he falls to 10, do you consider pulling the trigger there? I have a hard time based on all our needs pulling the trigger on a safety that high. I think there's some really, really valuable positions, specifically edge rusher at 4 and probably receiver at 10, depending on how free agency shakes out. I've kind of changed my tune a bit. I did not really want to go receiver in the top 10, but based on the last few games, I think it's probably something that I'd look to target. How do you feel about possibly taking Kyle Hamilton early in the draft?
So like just doing like content for a couple of years now, and like you doing content for a couple of years now, I kind of like not like it just happens where I recognize the debate points really early in the offseason, and I'm already tired of this debate. Like it's gonna happen until April, and I'm already tired of it because this is gonna be the main sticking point between people.
This was
Kyle
the quarterback
Hamilton
debate from last year. I feel like safety in the top 5 is like or even top 10. We'll call it top 10 is like way more abrasive for people than like I think anything else.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, a lot of those Sam Darnold people who we were fighting with on live streams are just gone. There's apps. I don't know where they went. They must have not just there's not on the streams anymore. There's a lot of them just quiet. I don't know what happened with that Sam Darnold people out there. That's a story for a different day. Yeah, like my feeling is if he's truly generational, I get it. But I have to watch for myself to see if he's truly generational. But if he is that, safety is important. And if he's an A+ on your board, and whoever else it is, 𝐗-𝐷 is a B+, are you going to skip on the A+ for a B+ player because you don't want a safety? Is safety not important enough? And the way I kind of labeled it, again, take out your personal bias. Thinking, and I'll ask you this question. I think I already asked you this last week, but I don't know if we ever like really discussed it. But okay, say if you had a guaranteed Jamal Adams, the way he played the first 3 years, who can cover a little bit better, better in general. He was not good in coverage, but he was okay. But a little bit better coverage Jamal Adams. I can guarantee you that without all the fucking him being a psychopath and all this other stuff, was he worth a fourth overall pick? Like Jamal, I guarantee you right now, that's what we're saying Kyle Hamilton is. Is that worth a fourth pick? Because the Seahawks, they traded 2 firsts, a third, all this stuff. You don't think that Jamal Adams is worth a fourth overall pick his rookie year?
I mean, I'll be honest, no. I mean, and it's mainly the issue I have with Jamal isn't so much Jamal himself, because I do think the talent is there. And I understand people like wanting him, like, look, the guy's great around the line of scrimmage. And he was heralded as this great leader. And I feel like we got the great leader to start, but when things kind of like did not go his way.
Yeah, but I'm saying minus the psychopath. I'm saying good. I'm saying a good locker room guy, which Kyle Hamilton is, and I'm saying a guy who can cover better than Jamal Adams because the way, if you're talking about generational, Jamal Adams is not generational coming out. So if you're talking generational, you're talking a Jamal Adams who can cover without being a psychopath. If I can guarantee that with the fourth pick, I'll take that. I'm okay with that. And I know there'll be a lot of arguments. Oh, Jamal couldn't cover. That's what I'm saying. Yes, but a Jamal who could cover.
Yeah.
Yes, who could cover. Versus a guy who, whether it be an Evan Neal or however you feel about, whatever the prospect you have up there, 𝐗-𝐷, if they feel like that's a slam dunk, a Jamal Adams who can cover, I think that's valuable. He made a massive impact on the defense. And imagine if he actually could play a deep third or a deep fourth or cover a tight end. So I would do it. But I'm not on the train where like that's exactly what I want it for. Like I rather have not a 𝐗-𝐷, a Hutchinson or Thibodeau's not gonna be there. Or you can even maybe convince me of Evan Neal if you're gonna play him at right guard, then maybe move him to right tackle or left tackle, depending on what happens with Fant and Becton. So I'm not. It's not like I'm like Kyle Hamilton's number one fan on a bandwagon, but I could get it if he's truly generational.
Yeah, I think that's sort of where I fall as well. So the reason I would say no to the Jamal Adams thing is because we passed on Watson and Mahomes, and it forced us to give up 3 second-round picks the year after with Sam. That's more so why I don't like Jamal and the antics and everything. So if you're telling me I could get the caliber of player of Jamal with the better coverage skills with Hamilton, I would say at 4 right now for me, I'm probably thinking edge rusher or trade down. Those are like probably the 2, 1A, 1B, because you're just in front of the Giants. Could you get the Washington football team to jump from 11 to 4 to beat the Giants? Or
but what if they don't?
The Falcons jumping in front of the Panthers. Like,
what if they don't?
They may not. If they don't, and you don't want to take 𝐗-𝐷, I'm okay with Kyle Hamilton. There's plenty of situations where I would be okay with it.
That's where I kind of am. I don't prefer it, but I'm okay with it because if you're talking about a guy who's generational, people say the best since Ed Reed. Ed Reed was like a mid-teens draft pick. Yeah, if he's as good as Ed Reed, I would take him number 1. That. Like Ed Reed is probably the best safety of all time.
Easily.
And that's why I kind of go to the Jamal Adams with coverage ability, because we talk about Jamal Adams, his first 3 years, he was considered a top 10 or top 10 5 safety in the league. Like he was that good. And Jets fans, minus their bias because now we hate him, but people were debating that he's the best safety in the league. People were talking about, him, Derwin James, Minkah, whoever else. So if you're talking about a guy who's a top 5 safety in the NFL, and that's what he's going to be after a year or two, and you're not going to take him at 4, I think that's kind of foolish. Because if you're taking the best player or a top 5 player at any position, I don't care if it's guard, linebacker, center, obviously corner, I think it's worth that pick. I think people overvalue, positional value in the draft because like Kyle Pitts, You can't take a tight end in the top 5. If Kyle Pitts was in this draft, you take him at 4 right now with the need we have a tight end. Fucking run for the podium for Kyle Pitts right now. So the safety not make an impact, the safety who could play in every coverage, who could play in the box, who could blitz. Like, he's not just a safety who's going to be playing, a curl to flat in a cover 3. That's not all that safety does. And I see that. And I looked into his injuries a little bit. So apparently I want to do my own research, but apparently he didn't have I think it was a leg injury, a massive leg injury. Yeah. It was more of him and his family pulling him out. Like, he could have played, but it was more of his family pulling him out, like saying, hey, we're not going to risk NFL futures here for meaningless games. So they pulled him out. So it's not like a major injury. Like, he's not Derek Stingley with injuries.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting debate. Like, I'm not saying I want that's not my ideal scenario, but generational at any position, the 4th pick, you can convince me with anything but kicker, punter, and that's pretty much it. I'll take anything generational.
Long snapper. Come on, generational long snapper.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Thomas Hennessy. We don't. He's generational already.
Okay, I think that's fair. Let's switch gears. Let's go over to the offensive side of the ball. Let's talk a little bit about the offensive line. Coming into the year, this was a position group that I think a lot of us wanted to see improved. We've invested a lot of assets into it over the course of the last 3-4 years. I shouldn't say 3-4. 2 years, basically since Joe Douglas has gotten here. We took AVT, we traded up and got him in the first round. Yeah, Becton coming back for year 2. Unfortunately, we lose him week 1, getting rolled up on by 𝐗-𝐅.
Beer burps.
Beer burps. Oh, sorry. And then you have guys like Dr. Guard that we bring in from Kansas City and LDT.
Did you see his comments today? They were kind of like insinuating that he's not sure if he's going to come back.
Yeah, it seems like he wants to pursue his medical career a little bit more, which I can't blame the guy. You got a doctorate, like, whatever.
He has so many years to do that, though. Like, damn it.
I know. Like, you can retire at like 32 or whatever it is. I don't know how old he is. He's probably 27, 28, somewhere up.
I think he's a little bit old. Yeah, a little bit older because of the whole medical thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what winds up happening with him. He's someone I would have liked to have brought back, even if it was more of a depth thing, but at least you know it's not necessarily a major weakness like it was with Van Roten. Mm-hmm. You pick up Moses, who's now on an expiring contract. Fant's got another year. He moves from right to left. He played phenomenal for the most part. And then you got Connor McGovern, who was coming off a few down years, winds up having maybe a rough beginning of the season and really picked it back up and is back to what I would have considered probably within a reasonable deviation of top 10 center in the league. So I would say, for me, grade-wise, I would give this unit a B+. Maybe you have to grade it based on parts of the season, right? Like, the beginning part of the season, I would say was closer to a D or an F, the way Wilson was running around. As they sort of gelled together, I think you're probably looking closer to an A up until this past week. And then you wind up getting 9 sacks or whatever it was, but you're missing your center. You got your friggin' third string left tackle out there. Moses eventually goes out. So yesterday, kind of if you wipe that off the board, I think this position group got significantly better from week 1 to week 17.
Yeah, we almost have to go like week by week for grades because there were so many different combinations of this line. But I think, and minus this week, like overall, when they're healthy, with Moses, with Fant, with McGovern, with AVT, and with LDT, they were an average group. Which, and again, people see 1 or 2 pressures a game, they automatically assume they're bad. And I had people who were comparing them to the Darnold lines. You don't understand how bad those Darnold lines were. They finished like 32 and 30, and I don't give a shit about numbers generically, but that's what they were for the people who like PFF. This year, the Jets, like the last couple of weeks, were like 18, 19, 20, and now you have Becton coming back, and you're assuming that's an upgrade over Becton and Fant is an upgrade over Moses and Fant. I don't think Moses is going to be back. LDT, I was kind of similar with you. I was either like, okay, he's either a depth player. If you bring in a big fish, like let's say it's a first round guy or a sheriff or whoever you like in free agency, or Connor Williams, whatever it is, or you bring him back and then you have a second or third round guy. He competes. Maybe he gets the job taken after 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, whenever the rookie starts to step up. So But now with him most likely being gone, that's a position we have to invest in. And people are like, oh, we don't need for O-line first round. You got to understand where Joe Douglas like built his roots at. He's not a guy who's going to be like, okay, I'm okay with a below average guard. Like he's going to want plus starters at every position. Fant was a above average left tackle, if not top 10. Like he was really, really good all year. He allowed 1 sack, I believe. And he was really, really solid. AVT had a stellar rookie year. He had a couple of hiccups, but overall pretty stellar. Connor McGovern was a top half of the league center, which after his year 1, again, people tend to their first year, they let that opinion really kind of formulate their opinions over the next couple of years. You can't really do much to kind of cancel that out. But overall, he was a top half of the league center. Moses was okay at right tackle, and then GVR was god awful at right guard. The LDT came in, and the run game significantly improved. So I would say they exceeded my expectations, especially considering you're saying that those expectations have to factor in that Becton went down, that McGovern went down for a couple of games, and Feeney stepped in, and all these injuries. AVT was out for a couple of games. LDT was out for a game or two. So B plus, and I think it's going to be a position that's addressed in the offseason too. And I think Joe Douglas is not going to stop until they have a top 5-10 unit, which I think if they invest a big kind of fish at right guard, they could be that unit this year. So.
Yeah, and if you watched the press conference with Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh earlier today, they talked about building from the trenches, and I think that is tipping the hand. You want to get edge rushers, you want to get more stout on the offensive line. It would not shock me, like you said earlier, Evan Neal at 4, or maybe Icky, the guard tackle from NC State.
Kenyon Green, Tyler Linderbaum at 10,
there's a few guys that have versatility, that are good in the wide zone blocking scheme, that provide some versatility, like an AVT who can kick out to left tackle if he had to, because he played it at USC. Like those types of players are incredibly valuable and are worth the contracts that you're going to inevitably have to give them if they are an all-star kind of player. And building that unit up front, one, it's cheaper than like wide receivers and corners and edges and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, you still need those, but it's cheaper to build a good offensive line and have meh pieces at like running back and wide receiver, because your quarterback's going to have a little bit more time to make those throws and make it a little bit easier. So I guess
Oh, sorry. Yeah, people are talking about the offensive line versus the Bills. The offensive line was garbage versus the Bills, but that's a different story. Feeney being in there, he's a backup level player at best, and Connor McDermott's one of the worst tackles I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't know why he must have dirt on Joe Douglas. Like he has something. I don't get why he's on the team.
I think he was meant to be like the emergency, like he's on special teams and maybe like an emergency tight end at some points.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, no, like you're going to learn to play tackle now.
That's definitely one like underrated, like secondary need for the Jets, is especially considering I don't think Moses is going to be back. Fant and Becton stepping in as a tackles next year. You need a backup tackle, because I don't trust any of the guys they have right now. I think Odogo's okay, like as a 4th guy, but Becton injury history, you need a guy as a backup. But I think Evan Neal or one of these guys, like I have no problem if the Jets use their 4th pick on Evan Neal. I don't like, that's fine with me. Having a top 5 offensive line is or even top 10, a guaranteed top 10 offensive line. You bring in Neal, I would I'm not going to guarantee it, but you'd be pretty disappointed if they have multiple first-round picks. Right guard, left tackle, an above-average center, and Fant, who gave up 1 sack this year. If you can't say that should be a top 10 line, we're being a little bit crazy. So drafting another offensive line, people are like, oh, he's not going to do that. Douglas, grinded his stones kind of on that. So I would be completely fine with that. And somebody asked me a question about Neal. What do you think that would or what would happen with Neal? Socrates. If they take Neal, how do you see the line configuration looking? Neal, the right guard. Yeah, that's what I would think. Socrates. Like you draft Neal, people say he could play guard. The only thing I don't want to watch with Neal, because a lot of people have him in the top 5, but there are some other sites who have him like in the 10-15 range, which again I want to watch for myself. Some people say, and again, I gotta watch for myself. I don't trust a lot of people. They say he's a little bit slow laterally, like a little bit heavy on his feet, leans a little heavy on his hands. So I want to watch that. But I think generically right now, Neal would be your right guard. And then he's a guy who could play left tackle, right tackle. And then you see how he works out at guard. And listen, people underrate guard. If he's an all-pro guard, who gives a shit? Keep him at guard. But with that being said, most likely what happens, he starts off at right guard, and then you see what happens with Becton or Fant, you kick him out to tackle. So that's I think probably happens. And if that happens and they take him at 4, I would be ecstatic with having another offensive lineman. So
yeah, 100%. If they decided to go like, hey, we're not going edge early, Carl Lawson's our guy, we're gonna pick up someone in free agency. We got $70 million to spend, and we're going Evan Neal, we're going Jameson Williams, we're going Trey McBride, the tight end, in the second round, and we're just loading up on offense. And then you start working, the defense, whether it be in free agency and some of those, third and later picks. I could get down with that. Like maybe it's Evan Neal, it's Jameson Williams, you're getting Trey McBride, the tight end, and you're getting like Patterson, the center from Notre Dame. And now all of a sudden you're like locked and loaded.
And the defense needs a major infusion in 2023 because the defense is still going to really suck.
It's going to be real bad. That's the issue, right? You got to tread that line of like, okay, we need to help our young quarterback because we haven't done it for so long, but we also need to make sure we put some resources on the defensive side of this team, because you can't have all your assets on offense, just like you can't have all your assets on defense the same way we've seen in the past from the Jets.
And I think the thing with the draft too, which by the way, I guess we're going to push past 9, which is okay with me. I don't know if it's okay with you.
Okay.
It's already 8. We only did one position on the offense. So with the offensive line, and it depends obviously. Like, okay, if people, I think the thing with like a Carl Loftus too is, and I got to watch myself. I always preface by saying that I think people are kind of bummed out that we missed out or potentially missed out on Hutchinson and Thibodeau. So now they're kind of like hyping up the Carl Loftus to be that next guy. It's like they're not disappointing themselves. So I'll have to see with him. But if it is Hutchinson, he's there. Like, yeah, take him over Neal, because you could find, I think, good offensive linemen lower than like the top 3, where the beginning of the draft is quarterbacks and DNs if they're good. Like that's what goes immediately because they're really, really hard to find, and corners are in there too. But with that said, yeah, if they want to take Neal, I'm completely okay with that. But the thing with the draft is, and we're talking about these needs, and we go on to mock drafts. Like I already do like 5 mock drafts a day. It's a problem. But with that being said, we're not looking at free agency. So if they bring in, whoever, all the receivers we wanted seemingly have injuries. And I know people are saying Brandon Sheriff. I'm just saying that like as a generic name. I know the injury history, but let's say we bring in like a Brandon Sheriff and a J.C. Jackson. That completely changes. Okay, now we're not going to talk about Trent McDuffie or McDuffie in the second round. We're not going to talk about Neal in the first round. So free agency, having $60-70 million, we're going to fill so many of these needs. We're really going to be able to kind of narrow our focus on the draft because we have massive needs at linebacker, safety, corner, D-end, guard, tight end. But again, we bring in Dalton Schultz, Sheriff and J.C. Jackson. It's like, okay, we need a receiver. That's pretty much it on offense. And then we can go defense, So there's so many things that are spinning our head, but it's all going to be figured out. When does free agency start? Like March 13th, 14th, 15th, something like that. I forget.
Yeah. Exactly, it's right around St. Patty's Day, usually like right around that 14th, 15th or so. All right. So let's move to the next position group. Let's talk about the tight ends. This was a position group that we kind of were hoping to see some progress from. I think for me, it was a group that I wanted them to invest a little bit in tight end. It didn't happen. And I think the way Douglas and Saleh kind of thought about it was Chris Herndon coming back, give him a little bit more of an offensive line, a different quarterback. Maybe he shines in this new offense before they start investing major money or major draft capital in a tight end. And I can understand that thought process. It's frustrating as hell because the tight end is such a major help for a young quarterback, but I can understand the thought process before you invest a lot into it. So they bring in Croft. They have Griffin. Herndon, they wind up trading for a 4th-round pick to the Vikings. He wound up not doing anything at all. It was an absolutely great trade. And then you have, I guess, Wesco and who am I missing? I'm missing someone in there.
You have Yeboah, Wesco.
Yeboah, there it is.
Daniel Brown.
Yeah, Daniel
Ryan
Brown.
Griffin.
Daniel Brown, we wind up trading for LDT. Great trade. We wind up getting him back. Helped us out on special teams. And Yeboah,
he had that good block on the Barrios return. That's about it, though.
Yeah. Hey, every player counts. So tight end wise, relative to position or relative to like expectation, I'm probably giving him a C. C plus maybe. Like I don't know. It was a bad position group, but I wasn't really expecting a whole lot from him to begin with. And when they traded Herndon, then I was kind of like, okay, we're going to be weak at this position. So it's sort of a weird grade for me. What about you?
This is the one area where I was just about to criticize you for timing your beer burps, and then I just started talking, and I had one. So I was like, I couldn't do it. I had to be honest there. So yeah, it's almost like with like safeties. Like I had no expectations. So like a D, I like Croft went out. I think Croft is an okay backup. Like I think Croft is a guy who is a little bit underrated in the passing game. Like he's a little bit faster than people realize. He can catch the ball. Minus this week, it seemed like everybody dropped the ball. But I think not the like A+ number 2 in the league, but like okay, like a C tight end 2. You know, a great tight end 3 in my opinion. But past that, like they had nothing. Like Ryan Griffin didn't expect him to be on the roster. Wesco is a pseudo fullback. Past that, like Daniel Brown is not even a Jag. A Jag is just a player. Like he's not even a Jag. Yeboah is a UDFA. He caught 2 balls last week. The one was a sliding catch, nice. The one ball he got lucky to catch with his forearm. Overall, like he's super raw coming out of Ole Miss. Didn't have any expectations for him. So like, yeah, I guess if you had absolutely no expectations, like a C, but just because they were so bad overall, and I would say probably if you had to stack up the tight end group versus every other position, tight end position group in the league, going through all the teams, it's probably number 32 pretty easily. Like, they don't have anything at tight end right now, which, again, I don't know if they've made my point again. The Heinens are talking. Joe Douglas, knowing that this system is so 12 heavy personnel, the fact that they didn't really invest in tight end and your number one investment was Tyler Croft, who is often injured, is a massive mistake to me. Like people get on Joe Douglas for Denzel Mims. We all love them. We all love the Becton pick. Like there are some things like I get it. It didn't work out, but I see the thought process. I did not understand the thought process of not bringing in tight end at all. So I didn't have any expectations, but just based on like principle, I'm giving it a D. I just can't go any higher.
Now let's go to receiver, because I think this was a position group that all of us across the board thought was going to be one of our strongest positions. Like if you were saying strongest position on defense was going to be the defensive line, the offensive equivalent to that was going to be the wide receivers. You bring in Corey Davis, like last year's second round pick in Denzel Mims. You're going through the offseason. You're like, okay, yeah, that's a guy. Like he's going to be our top guy. And then you bring in Keelan Cole. You bring in Corey Davis. You draft Elijah Moore higher than Denzel Mims. And then you have Crowder coming back. You have Berrios, playing again. I think this group, while I had very high expectations, I would say definitely underwhelmed me. We had a lot of drops this season. Corey Davis, really wacky year for him. Like lots of drops. I'm pretty sure this is the most drops he's ever had in his career. I have to go back and look, but it's like really I know they're all coming up.
I know. I'm trying not to.
I get too excited and I'm like bouncing around, and then like the bubbles start coming.
Yeah, I know.
Not good.
You gotta stop shaking, guys. Just sit there. I like the receiver. You can't keep shaking. That's why
I like the receiver. Robotic, just
yeah.
No, seriously. This was a group I expected a lot from. I thought it was our deepest group. Denzel Mims easily gets an F for me. Position group wise, I'm probably giving them a C-, just because I liked what we got from Berrios. I like what we got to see from Elijah Moore. I do see the connection with Corey Davis and Zach Wilson. I just think, I don't know. Corey Davis might have been in his own head. It was just kind of wacky what we got from him. I think he will go back to his more normal sort of stat line that you saw as a Titan next year. I do think this is a group that we need to invest a premium asset in, whether it be a top level free agent or a top 10 pick. Like for me, I'm looking Jameson Williams, Drake London, or Treylon Burks. Those 3 guys possibly at number 10. I don't know where they go, but like I would prefer someone who could either take the top off the defense in Jameson Williams. Guy's going to run like a 4.3 at 6'2", and like then Elijah Moore and Corey Davis can feast in the middle of the field. Not to mention whatever tight end we wind up bringing in. Or if you wind up wanting a red zone target, someone like a 6'5" guy like Burks, I think is someone you'd want. Or I think London's a 6'5". I think Burks is 6'3". I could be wrong on that.
And there's people
So,
talking about Olave and Garrett Wilson, who people have Wilson and Garrett and Olave even higher than Williams. You know, like it depends on who you like, who you watch. People had Ruggs as the number one 2 years ago, and I had Judy easily above him. And Judy has been a little bit disappointing, but nonetheless, I think
better than
Ruggs.
Ruggs.
Well, that's a different conversation. But yeah, were you finished what you were saying? Or you want me to go on this?
Yeah, no, I'm done. You could go. I would say C minus based on expectations.
Yeah, so it's interesting because Corey Davis, and you were right, because it's in his head, and he has that issue, and some people, they don't let it get to their head. But I remember specifically watching and doing his film review. I liked him, and then you saw him the last couple of weeks of the season pressing for 1,000 yards, and those last 2 weeks he played the Texans and the Packers, and he dropped a lot of balls in those games because he was really looking to get that 1,000 yards. You could tell he just wasn't looking the ball in. But I think people are almost a little bit down on Davis because we signed him, and their expectations was that he was going to be a legit number one. Based on the money that they signed him for, it's not a true number one. Like, he got signed for $12 million. Again, you have to take that into context. Nelson Aguilar got $12.5 million. Kenny Galladay got $19 million and didn't catch a touchdown this year, which obviously that's a bust. But I think Corey Davis was signed to be a high-end number two, and I think he was a little bit disappointing in terms of being a high-end number two. But he's still a high-end number two. Like, I think that's what he is. I don't think he's in as many drops this year. So if Corey Davis is your two, that's a solid group. And Moore might be the one, whatever it is. But then you go past that. I would say Moore met or exceeded expectations. Like, he was good. He was quiet, but then he obviously had a couple of steps up, and then he was injured in the last couple of weeks, which sucks. But he exceeded. So Corey Davis a little bit below. Moore met or exceeded, but then past that, Crowder, not much of an impact, below expectations. Keelan Cole was a massive disappointment this year. And then we're all talking about Jameson Williams and Wilson and Olave and Burks and all these other guys because we expected Mims to be that guy. And Mims is not that guy. So that's why we're talking about receiver again. So Mims was a massive, massive disappointment. So if you're talking about a grade that a C is right on the midline, right? C plus. I don't know. I was a bad student, so like C. I said C minus, but I'd probably say a D plus because Davis was below it, Crowder was below it, Cole was below it. Mims dug himself a hole. He wasn't below a line. He dug his way to China this year. And then Braxton Berrios and Moore met or Berrios definitely exceeded, and then Moore was a little bit above expectations considering the hype he got. So yeah, D plus, C minus. But I really like Moore going forward. I really like Berrios as a 4 or 5. I really like Davis as a 2. And if they are to invest highly, whether it be a Robinson or let's say Mike Williams, even though Jets have so many injuries, I don't really like the idea of Mike Williams. I think he's more of a vertical Adam Gase threat in an offense, not we need a Deebo Samuel type guy to me. But I have a lot of faith in this group going forward, but I thought they were going to be really, really good. And they were solid, but they still definitely flew way below my expectations. So yeah, D plus, C minus, and a massive reason for that is Mims, because Mims is a guy I thought could be a starting level receiver, and he's a guy who people are talking about trading for a 5th or 6th round pick at this point. So.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he's on the team next year. What are your thoughts? We heard some rumors earlier this week that possibly Calvin Ridley, if he's feeling a little bit better, if there's no conversation between him and the Falcons, maybe he winds up getting moved. How would you feel if the Jets wound up bringing him in? Would you give up a 2nd round pick for him, or are you thinking draft?
Yeah, well, the problem is you're probably going to need to jump on that trade before the draft because he's probably going to be relatively a hot commodity. But that's another conversation. It's interesting because there's so many angles. What does he demand? Because does Joe Douglas specifically, who's team captain type guy, want a guy who just walked down the Falcons in the middle of the year? He is a number 1 receiver. He is a guy who could do everything from yak, from contested catch. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's good. But initially I was like, damn, I really want that guy. But thinking about you have to trade a pick, you have to sign him, a little bit of a head case.
Well, he's got a year left on his deal, and then
you have to sign him.
Tag him if you had to.
Yeah, but you're not going to trade a pick for him and not sign him. That would be really stupid. Yeah. So you're going to have to assume that they're going to sign him. So, at first I said a 2nd and a later round pick. Now almost a 3rd. I probably just wouldn't do it because of the whole mental thing. A lot of people talk about Michael Thomas. little bit of a head case. Juju
Mhm.
Smith-Schuster, dancing on logos, TikToking. Don't want him. You know, like I don't want those guys who are head cases who Zach Wilson going to year 2 who looked much more comfortable his last couple of weeks. You don't want that diva receiver who's going to not talk shit, but demand the ball and be a problem in practice and be throwing his hands in the game when he doesn't get targeted. Like, so I don't really want the Ridleys, the Jujus, those type of guys. So I would probably stay based on the price. I think it's probably going to be around a second round pick and a little bit more. I would probably stay away from a guy like Calvin Ridley. But overall, like I said, for the group, I would give it a D+, but that's because my expectations were pretty high. And I think next year they're going to have a pretty formidable group. There you go. Got it out.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the trade market because Calvin Ridley's just one name that we've heard out there. There were names thrown out there like Brandon Cooks, Jarvis Landry. Who's the other one? There was a fourth player out there. Yeah. Whatever.
Jarvis Landry's not a bad fit too. Like you want like that big like X like guy who can get yak, but Jarvis Landry is more of like a slot who can get yak. Like he's not a terrible fit, but Jameson Williams just tore his ACL. People are saying here he might be really hurt. So that's another guy. No. Chris Godwin, Michael Gallup, Godwin, Jameson Williams.
Every friggin' receiver that I want is going down with an ACL.
Maybe we shouldn't take a receiver. There's just something up.
If you see an ACL for Jameson Williams and he's there in the second round, you pull the trigger?
Oh my God. Now this is another conversation. I like to hit shit from so many angles because then people will attack you on the one angle you didn't hit. It's almost like that conversation of Jeffrey Simmons. Like, okay, he's going to be a top D tackle, but when do you need him? And if it's an injury, that depends on how big the tear is. It depends how bad the injury is. But if you're going to guarantee me that he's going to be completely healthy in 2023 and you're getting a first-round receiver at 36, at 36 or 39, that's almost like a first-round pick. I probably wouldn't invest that high, but like a third, yeah, sure. But like I said, the thing with receivers is, to me, like, listen, like while I get the need for it, and in general, I want to tend even like more towards offense because I want to surround Zach Wilson, even though defense is much bigger need. If you look at the positions individually, I think we talked about this last week. Receivers probably like the 7th biggest need on this team right now. Like you're talking about having a decent group with Davis and more than you bring in whoever. Like that's an okay group. But like safety, nothing. Linebacker plus Mosley, nothing. Tight end, absolutely nothing. Right guard, nothing. So you're looking at like the 5th, 6th, 7th biggest need on this team. So I'm not for drafting a receiver at 10. Like that's my general thing because receivers in the last couple of years, there are guys who are killing it. T. Higgins, all these guys who are killing it in the 2nd, 3rd round, and there's no Ja'Marr Chase. If you want to take that guy at 10, I'm more offensive line, defensive line, corner, even linebacker. Like there's nothing past Mosley. So you have a complete dud as a 2nd string linebacker where you have guys like Davis and Moore and Barrios or whoever else can go out as your 3. Like you need a tight end, you need a linebacker, you need a safety. So people are talking about receivers a lot because they're sexy. But there are much bigger teams on this are needs on this team, and there's no Ja'Marr Chase in this draft. So a 10 pick, when I'm seeing a lot of people lump in Wilson, Olave, Jameson Williams, Burks, all these guys, it is one of those guys really that much better than the group to take them at 10? I don't know. So I'm more like 2nd, 3rd round type guy for a receiver than I am 1st round or sign a guy in the draft in free agency. So
now let's move on to the running backs. This is an area that we took P-Ryan last year. We wind up, or 2 years ago, I guess at this point. You bring in Michael Carter. With our 4th round pick, you have Ty Johnson, you have Austin Walter, and Tevin Coleman. This is a position group I wasn't really sure what to expect out of. I kind of just figured middle of the pack. I think Michael Carter is a stud. This guy was a home run pick in the 4th round. Tevin Coleman, I would love to bring him back. I don't know what kind of money he would command, but I would love to bring him back. I like Ty Johnson minus the dropsies. So like if he can kind of figure that out, I don't mind. And Austin Walter is a fine body, at the tail end of the roster. I think P-Ryan probably gets cut, but this is a position group that I would say moving forward is pretty solid. I mean, maybe you look to bring in an additional body because you don't know how long Coleman's going to be around for, but no. I'm pretty happy with what we got out of this. I'd give this a solid B, I think.
Yeah, somebody mentioned no ACL tear. If that's him. Somebody asked too, would you take Hamilton at 4 and 𝐗-𝐅𝐸, the rusher, from at 10?
You were the
If
one
you
that
had to
was
sign me up
telling
for that
me.
right now, I wouldn't mind that. Like that's not
Mhm.
and again, I have to preface it by saying I have to watch, and people like oh, this kid, whatever, bullshitting, whatever. If you're a fan, if you enjoy the work, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I gotta watch these guys. People are high on Gary and Farrell and
Mhm.
Jalen Marshall and all these players, and I look at them like this guy fucking sucks. So I can't just do that. So I gotta preface it by saying that. But with that being said, for the running backs, Carter, for a 4th-round pick, he looks like a legitimate 1A, 1B. Like he is that guy. And for a 4th-round guy, good. That's he's plus. Coleman, I'll be honest, I thought he was a Jag. I think he's like a Jag plus. Is that
Mhm.
okay? Like I
I
think
think that's
he's
fair.
I think he's okay, which is fine. I think he would be fine. I think bringing him back for $1 million, $1.5 million next year would be good. Past that, you have Walter, who I think exceeded expectations because we didn't have any expectations.
Mhm.
And then P. Ryan's gone. He got no snaps like ever. He
Mhm.
got snaps one game, and he didn't do anything when it was literally just him and Ty Johnson because everybody else was injured. Carter was injured. Coleman was injured, and I think Walter got sick before the game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he had a stomach
Yeah,
bug or something like that, right?
yeah. So you had 2 running backs that game. He saw a couple carries. He's as good as gone. And then Ty Johnson, he's not a good player. Like I get he has speed. I get that he can truck some guys over. Terrible patience,
Mhm.
terrible vision, terrible pass catcher, terrible pass
Blocker.
blocker. That's 4 things that are really important for a running back, and he can't do it at all. So Ty Johnson's gone. So I would say that next year you probably have your 1A, 1B in Carter. You have Tevin Coleman, who I feel comfortable with as a 3. But I think getting that guy in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round as like the 1B would be good for this team because I don't think they have that true 1B right now. Or I think Carter could be that 1A, but there's I wouldn't take that for Coleman right now. So yeah, I would say like a B because a main sticking point with being Carter and Coleman, and then with that, if we're talking about running backs, we can talk about this with tight ends, but Bawden's another guy with that, the Nick Bawden. Guy who looks like a legitimately good fullback right now. So that's a positive. So let's bring up to like a B plus because Bawden looks to be solid in that position, and maybe you consider Westco there too.
So now we're going to get to the position everyone's been waiting for, and that's our quarterback situation. Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, Mike White, for a little bit, Josh Johnson. What were your thoughts?
Oh
Actually, no.
God,
Let me give my thoughts first. So, Zach
you.
Wilson,
Oh my God.
I was okay. I will say this: Mike White exceeded my expectations. Joe Flacco, wasn't expecting him, but I think for the time he played, exceeded my expectations. Josh Johnson, I think he exceeded my expectations. The big one, Zach Wilson, I feel like was probably on par to disappointing for what I was hoping to get from him. But I do think the flop of a wide receiver room that we wound up kind of having contributed to the issues that we wound up seeing with Zach. But I do think from game 1 to I'll say game, week 17, yesterday's game was just such a crap, situation for Wilson.
Yeah.
I would say this is kind of how I expected Wilson's rookie year to look. He's coming from a smaller school in BYU. He's getting up to speed. He's learning a new offense. I would say disappointing, but overall C plus. Like I feel comfortable that we traded Sam. I feel comfortable saying like I'm not looking for a quarterback at least for the next year, maybe 2. I would say, I don't know. It's C plus, and I would say there's enough encouraging signs from Wilson that you could be excited with the additions, with the 70 million in cap, with the 9 draft picks, that you could look forward to next year's season being a big step up. What were your thoughts on the quarterback position?
Yeah, somebody said I don't know if somebody in the chat mentioned getting a 1st-round pick for White, but that is not happening at all. I don't know
It
who.
should have happened right after the Bengals.
I can only see like the last
like,
5, but whoever's
move
doing
quick.
that is smoking crack. I saw another thing in here too. We didn't really get to the chat, which is fine, whatever. Yeah, it's like it's I think a lot of people are going to grade this with like, what have you done for me lately? Which for Wilson is he would be above expectations. But I think for overall, the beginning of the year was not our expectations. We, number 2 pick, I get that coming from a small school. I get the fact that the offensive line at times wasn't ideal. I get the injuries at receiver. I get the drops at receiver. But regardless of what you want to say, going through his mental processing, all this stuff, the actual quarterback play, he was a disappointment. The last couple of weeks, Bills game, I feel like it was pretty much 2 expectations. Like with no offensive line, with no running game, with no at the end of the game, no defense that's supporting you, and really the defense was more a product of Josh Allen is not having a good game. Like I think Josh Allen is good. I don't think he's great. Like I like Josh Allen, but people talk about him like he's a top 3, like 3 to 5 guy. He's not consistent enough for me. But
5. Dude, if I had.
If he was top 5,
this year I might say not top 5, but I think last year was top 5. I would say like.
But then what were the years before that though?
Well, years before that, no. Years before last year, no. Like
okay,
I thought
so your sample size is 1 year of his 4 years being top 5.
I would say last year was top 5. I would say this year top 10. I think he has the arm strength. I think he has the physical size to just impose his will. I would 100% take Josh Allen on this team versus almost any quarterback. I mean, given the age, the contract, and everything.
I think he's top 10, but I don't think he's top 5 right now. And that might seem like a little like I'm being like nitpicky, but if he played like he was top 5 yesterday, the Jets lose by 40 points. Like he missed so many throws that game, it was out of control. But for Wilson, he started off the season below, end of the season much higher than I thought he would. Like that Bucs game, the Jaguars, I couldn't give 2 shits less about your stats. Don't bring the stats to me because I'll show you 5, 10, 15 plays of his mental processing that was on point. And if you want to talk about all those stats, okay, then tell me why on the one concept he was reading a pull concept, realized that the cover 3 was heavily based on their pre-snap rotation was fading towards that pull concept. He realized by the pull concept that the inside seam was getting covered, so he threw it to the backside. I think it was a dig. Okay, want to debate? We could do that. I'm down with that. Like I expect a couple of drinks in me. I'm cool.
Don't pick fights with Joe Blewett.
So Wilson's processing minus the stats in the game was great. The Dolphins game, good game. The Bucs game, great game. They were, to me, maybe not the Dolphins game, all better than the Titans game. The Titans game was great because we saw the flashy throws, but I know he could do those flashy throws. The flashy throws are going to show up 4, 5 times a game if you're lucky. But then what are you going to do on those other 35 to 40 plays you're throwing the ball? Maybe some games depends on the game plan, 20, 25, 30, whatever. Don't get on me for that. But what are you going to do though, 20 to 30 plays of the game? And in the Jags game, the Bucs game, the Dolphins game, he was showing me that mental processing standpoint where I was really, really, really excited. So, and I don't think he's going to be down and then go up and then kind of level out versus the Bills and then just go down again, especially with another year with better talent around him, better offensive line, better tight end, better receiver. So I would probably say like C+. And I think that's fair. I think the people who are saying B+, A-, all this stuff have recency bias, but they're kind of forgetting how bad, the Saints game was, the Pats game was. So from an overall standpoint, like C+. All
right. So that was our offense, our defense, our special teams. There's still one more unit we got to talk about.
I don't know.
And that's the coaching staff.
Yeah.
We're talking coaching staff. How did we do overall? Boyer on special teams, I feel like I'm going to give him an A. I thought through 3 head coaches, the issues we've had at the kicking situation, the emergence of Berrios, I think he did very well. Defensive-wise, Ulbrich, I feel bad for the guy. Like, look, the defense is a clear F, like across the board. But Ulbrich, you bring in guys like a Ronnie Blair, a Carl Lawson, a Vinny Curry, a LaMarcus Joyner to try and make the 3-4 to the 4-3 transition as easy as possible, and you lose all of them. Blair comes back for a few games, and that's about it. He just didn't have the horses in the stable to run a defense, let alone the defense he wants to run. I would say Ulbrich for me, based on expectations, I'm going to give him a D- just because, I thought the D-line was going to be better. I thought we would see some spark. And maybe that's a little bit harsh, and maybe some other people want to give him an F. I get it. But I'm not giving up on Ulbrich after this year because of all the issues that we had and the lack of resources we put into that side of the ball. Remember, 2 off seasons in a row, we have not put any real high priority free agents or draft picks into that, except for the Carl Lawson, the Vinny Curry, the Ronnie Blair, and the LaMarcus Joyner. And then you trade away, Jamal Adams and Leonard Williams, both great moves, but also removing talent from that side of the field. So for Ulbrich, I kind of give him a little bit of a pass. Maybe it's an incomplete for him more than a bad grade.
Don't be soft, Ryan. Just give your grade.
No, I said D. I gave him a D.
Okay.
I'll give him a D. Offensive coordinator wise, I'm A+ for LaFleur. I think it was rough to start. We saw him with Flacco, with Josh Johnson, with Mike White, and the offense played well. I think all 3 guys were over 300 yards, if I'm not mistaken. I could be off on that with Flacco. And then Zach Wilson coming back from injury, having John Beck on the sideline with him, having LaFleur up in the booth. So maybe split it like this. Maybe LaFleur on the sideline, D-. LaFleur in the booth, A+. I would say A+ from LaFleur because I genuinely think he's the best offensive coordinator that we have had. It might.
You better say the right name. You better say the right name. I'm curious.
What?
I said you better say what? You better say the right name. I'm curious who you think the last Jets' best offensive coordinator was. Because I have a really strong opinion on this.
Okay. God, best. I'm only saying since I've been watching. So 32 years. I'm 32 years old.
Yeah, I wasn't saying in history. I'm saying like last good OC the Jets have had.
I would say. I mean, look, the year with Decker and Marshall is hard not to like. I really liked. Was it John Morton?
Yes, that's the answer.
I love John Morton. I really did. I thought he was great.
He's putting up 30+ points for some games with absolutely no talent on the team with Josh McCown quarterbacking. Like he was a good OC, and then for whatever reason they banished him for Jeremy Bates, and Jeremy Bates sucked. John Morton was severely underrated as a Jets OC. He was really good.
Want to know a little inside secret as to why Jeremy Bates was brought in? I don't know if I told you this.
Something about they had an agreement if he came back or something like that.
It was a phone call the year before.
But how do we know this?
I can't disclose that, but I know from a source that I'll tell you after this stream that he was on the phone and suggested the Hackenberg pick the year prior. And I'm pretty sure that was the Morton year. And then the year after that, they brought in Bates to be the quarterback coach or offensive or whatever the hell he was. But I think that's what kind of helped push Morton out, which sucks because I liked Morton. I thought Morton was our best offensive coordinator. But I think LaFleur has the ability to be a longer-term good offensive coordinator to great offensive coordinator because I love we finally saw trick plays. We saw the jet sweeps. We saw the razzle-dazzle of the throw it to the receiver throws a pass or you hand it off and throws it back to Wilson and then he throws a pass. Like those are the things that you wanted to see the Jets do because we don't have those horses on the offensive side to really contend with the top-level teams. And we were kind of competitive with a pretty decent amount of games. I mean, there were some that we still got blown out in, but I liked what we got out of LaFleur. And then that brings me to Saleh and his coaching. I would say we definitely had issues with clock management at points. I think there were some questionable decisions at other points, but I do like his demeanor. I think he's got the I don't know. I think when there's certain coaches like an Adam Gase that you look at and you say like, okay, I don't think he earns the respect of the guys in the room. Like I think the guys in the room for Saleh look at him and he's a strong guy. He's a good looking dude. He's a younger guy. Like I think that helps. I think the rookie head coach growing pains were clearly there. I'd give Saleh. I'd give him a C. I think I think based on what he had to work with, like I'm not grading him and his defense because of, all the issues I named with Ulbrich. Well, hold on. Let me go back on stream. Bam. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. I would say I'm encouraged.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
everything just like clicked.
One thing, Ryan, after you do this too, because I don't care how many 100 people are watching this. I gotta admit this. If I don't go to the bathroom, I'm gonna have to piss my floor, and you're gonna hear it. So I'm just going to the bathroom for 2 seconds.
Go to the bathroom. It's okay. I'll talk to the chat for a little bit, then I'll get your thoughts on the head coaching situation or the coaching situation in general. So clearly, Joe has to turn off his camera because he's peeing in the studio. That's actually what's going on right now. Let's see. What are you guys talking about in the chat? Streamlabs. So I started using the Streamlabs bot, and I don't exactly know what it does, but it looks like it's doing its thing. Whatever on the side. So let me know if you like it or not. NY Jets Florida, Ryan man crush on LaFleur. Yeah, you know what? I like good offense, and it's been a really long time since we've had it. So bite me. Jam Stasher says Jameson Williams hurt his knee. Did you guys see that? I didn't see the play. I heard everyone talking about it. I hope it's not an ACL because I really, really like Jameson Williams, and I'd be really upset if like we're just losing more and more guys that we could potentially take at 4, at 10. Green Bean's in the chat. What's up, dude? ADK Jets fan says, wash your hands, Joe. Jeremy says, ask Joe if he likes hot sauce. For those of you that don't know, Jeremy's going to do a spoonful of what's the name of the hot sauce? Some kind of crazy hot sauce. That's really good. Jay Oak says Ryan said Salah was cuter than LaFleur. No, LaFleur's a babe, dude. Chick magnet. Oh God, this is what happened. I wind up getting you guys sending me clips of stupid stuff that I say. Joe sent me a clip the one time. There he is. Joe's back. See, look at it. Joe sent me a clip the one time. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like
I still have. I can find it by the time at the end of this stream. I could find that if you want me to.
Oh my God. Well, it's probably, if we go back through our texts, I'm sure it's in there, but it's like, it was a fuck, marry, kill situation. And I know exactly what it was. It was,
no.
I would F Bill O'Brien, I think was the, I'm pretty sure it was Bill O'Brien was the name that we were talking about. Cause I want to say it was Adam Gase, Bill O'Brien. Oh God. Who's the other head coach? It was like 3 different head coaches that we were doing fuck, marry, kill for. And that was, I was not
on that show. I don't think I was on that one.
I wasn't on the show. That was my Monday show. I think I was talking about it. And you came on the Tuesday show and you clipped the portion of the Monday show and sent it to me. And I was like, oh, damn. I was like, I didn't even like really realize that. And we were having a good laugh about it. All right, Joe, I want to get your thoughts on the coaching staff from special teams, defense, offense, and head coach. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, oh, hold on.
Now he's got to pull it up.
I just found it. Hold on.
Now you got to show it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course I'm going to show it. And like usually the thing, like I'm sorry. I think we're friends enough at this point where I could take over a little bit. Cause like usually on my stream, I'm like, yeah, I got to go piss, guys. But like here, I was like sitting here, like listening to the whole coaching thing. I was like, do you think it's like, like 5-10 more minutes? How long are we going to talk? And we can talk for another 30 minutes. Like, I got to tell him. I just got to do it.
Dude, it's cool. I told you the Green Bean story. Green Bean's in the chat right now.
Yeah. So this is, I don't know if you could.
You can see it clearly.
You can see that?
Oh yeah. Oh, you got to put it next to your microphone.
Oh.
I would fuck Bill O'Brien.
I would fuck Bill O'Brien.
I'd fuck Bill O'Brien.
Oh, damn it.
So yeah, coaching staff. I guess we're gonna go through like the entire group. The Ulbrich. Listen, like I get the whole thing about him not having the horses because Huff was out and Lawson was out and Q was out for some games and he had no linebackers. He had no Joyner. He had no May for a good amount of the year. He didn't have corners. With that being said, should we be the 32 ranked defense in the league? Should we be one of the worst, if not the worst, Jets defenses of all time with considering like numbers? No. So D- from him. And I think he adjusted a little bit, moving Hall around. But the defensive line, like I want to see him 2-gapping more with Fatukasi. Like I get we were 4-3 penetrating front, but there's plenty of there's plenty of talent on the front where you could adjust a little bit hybrid fronts like the Pats do, where you can play a 3-4 and a 4-3 principles at the same time. So he didn't adjust that. And people are going to bitch regardless. Like, yeah, we don't have the horses. This is kind of for 𝐷. Like, we run man coverage on third down. People, we shouldn't run man coverage on third down. We run zone coverage heavily against the Falcons. We get ripped up on zone coverage. Why are they running zone coverage? Like, you're never going to win when you're bad. We don't have the talent. So while I think he's a little bit too strict to his schemes at times, he didn't have help. But with that said, we don't deserve the numbers that they put up this year. It was terrible. There was plenty of games the teams are putting up 40 plus on us. There's games, the Broncos game early, the Pats game early, where they're beating us so bad they don't need to put up points. So how many points will they have put up if they actually needed to? So this defense was historically bad. So D minus F, like it's just, regardless of the talent, it's you cannot excuse that. LaFleur, B plus, A minus. Beginning of the year was not good. End of the year was great. So probably A minus. Some of his schemes, like there are some plays where you have some handoffs, fake handoffs and jet motions going into the same spot in the field, which is that and OC is really like, that's talent dependent. Like, is that players screwing up that concept in terms of, a jet sweep and a fake handoff going in the same way? Just doesn't really fake out the defense. You had multiple times where a flat route, a bench route, whatever it may be, and an over route are going to the same spot, so you can kind of cover it because it's so condensed with one defender. Is that the players or is that the scheme? So like there are some questions I have about, that I would need to see like them coach it to really judge that for all sides of the ball. So there are some questionable things that he does. But overall, like we saw great creativity. We saw the offense clicking with backup quarterbacks. We saw the offense clicking with Zach Wilson later in the season. So I'll probably say B plus, A minus for LaFleur. And we can go through. There's so much shit with coaching. And then solid, yeah, like a C plus. I think he's okay. There are some questionable decisions with like timeouts and things like that, and like nothing I can think of off the top of my head, right now. But I thought he was good, and I think people kind of overlook the whole sideline antics. People are like, oh my God, he's not screaming at his players when they're down 10-45. Like, what do you want him to say? You fucking suck. You suck. You suck. Like, what is he supposed to say? Like, what are you supposed to do? But the people don't give him credit. Like, I think it was Michael Carter made a big tackle, or Eccles made a big tackle against the Bucks, and he's like high-fiving him on the sideline, like right after the play, like coming out into the field, getting aggressive. You saw him being aggressive with the refs a little bit. So I think at first he was a little bit like caged in, like he wanted to like, okay, I'm a head coach now, like thinking like I need to be a head coach. And I think after the first like half of the season, he started to realize like I'm just going to be myself. I thought he was a little bit that more on the sidelines, which is a positive. And managing the team, managing guys' expectations, being the overall like manager of the players and kind of like the overseer. I think everybody spoke about him really highly. Everybody respects him a lot throughout the league. And I don't think he diminished that in any type of way this season. So I think he met to exceeded my expectations. So he gets a C plus. There were some things I didn't necessarily love. He said in the media or things like that. Again, going over examples of 9 weeks ago is kind of hard. But yeah, C plus for him, D minus, F for 𝐷. It just is what it is. And then probably a B plus for LaFleur. So
I see in the chat, A plus for Middleton, undefeated.
Milton, another good one is Tony Oden, in terms of how they're playing. The last DB coach who I always had problems with, like people loving, bless Austin, I always have problems with something, but like Oden, I forget who the last DB coach was, the guy from the Rams. I forget his name off the top of my head. But Oden did a much better job with these guys. I mentioned on Twitter though, he has to do a little bit better job in terms of them playing like shuffle bail, zone bailing, and letting guys attack their blind spots. I saw that way too much this season, but that's something that I hope they'll fix with some better players and some more time. But overall, he was good. You can go, Middleton won a game. Like, hey, cool for Middleton. But yeah, it was, overall, there's some highs and lows. Like, 𝐷 isn't what I wanted, but like, imagine if they could sound like, and then it's not gonna happen, but like a Fangio or something like that, like coming off of a head coaching gig, but it's never gonna happen. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, we should go after Vic Fangio," and I'm just like, I get it, I understand the want, but like, if you bail on 𝐷 after like the shit he was handed, like, I just feel like that's kind of like maybe he's the guy that has to fall on a sword, but dude, I'd feel bad for the guy after like I feel like he got dealt a raw hand this year.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a big difference between like good DCs and good head coaches. Like there are some guys who are great DCs and they just can't be head coach. I think Fangio kind of falls into that. And there are a couple of guys like maybe Dan Quinn falls into that. The Todd Bowles of the world fall into that. But if you can get me one of those guys, which I don't, it's not going to happen because Ulbrich is going to be back for year two, and I'm pretty sure that was it Saleh or Joe Douglas that confirmed that all the coordinators are going to be back for next year. So he's not going anywhere. It's a moot point right now.
Yeah, 100%. So that's basically all our grades. I do want to get your thoughts because I did see something pop up in the chat real quick. I was surprised that the Dolphins fired Brian Flores. I thought that team was gritty, and I thought they showed a lot of heart. They went on a 7-game win streak. Like, surprised is the word I think I would use for it. I have no idea who they have in mind for a head coach, but it makes me happy that I think Watson is no longer going to consider Miami now that Flores isn't there. And I'm okay with that because I would love to see Tua stay in Miami. What are your thoughts on that head coaching move?
Yeah. By the way, I was scrolling up in the chat too, and somebody said, "Ask Joe if he likes hot sauce." And yes, I do. I have like a couple $100 worth of different hot sauces in my cabinet. So yes.
Wow, really?
I love hot sauce. Yeah,
I love hot sauce, but I don't have that much. I have like Red Hot, and that's like it.
No, I went to Virginia, and I forget what town I was in. I'll remember a different time. Popular town in Virginia. Some people probably know in the chat, but Alexandria, I think it is. And there was this hot sauce place, and I bought like $200 worth of hot sauce. I love hot sauce. So
it's
yes.
so good, dude. I could my body will hate me for a day or two after. Like buffalo chicken dip is like one of my favorite things.
Oh yeah, that's not like real hot sauce. Like that's not. It's.
It can be. You don't have to use Red Hot.
Wings.
You could use other hot sauce.
You are right. Somebody said peanut bottle too. I saw that, but sometimes bottles aren't big enough, especially when you have drinks. It's just you think about it. It's not enough.
Like Joe has over there.
No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the level of
the volume of urine.
The pee. Yeah, no. It's a bottle sometimes doesn't control it, especially when you're dancing for an hour. It's just not gonna happen. So yeah, the Dolphins, and I'm pretty sure it was either I think it was the owner Ross came out and said today that they're not looking to get Watson. Like he straight up said it today.
Yeah, I think they said he also wasn't going to be the guy to pull Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. But if Harbaugh pulls himself, then I think maybe there's a possibility. But I think Harbaugh and Vic Fangio go to Vegas because Harbaugh was a Raider fan growing up, and I think that's just one of those opportunities that like I could see him going for.
Yeah, I'm not a big Harbaugh guy. Just in general, people talk about him last year for the Jets. I was completely out on that. I think he's more named than he actually is substance. But in terms of the Dolphins, like Greer, if you look at his like mistakes over the last couple of years in terms of like signing guys, cutting guys, trading guys you just signed, like I think that like Van Noy they gave a big contract to and I got rid of him like the next year.
Yep.
So I think Greer has been a joke as a GM. I think this year they had pretty high expectations for the Dolphins, and I think they disappointed a little bit. But like you said, Flores finished on a 7-game winning streak and then lost the last week to the Pats, right? Or no, they won.
They lost 2.
They lost.
They won against the Pats. They lost the Titans the week before.
Okay, yeah. So, but overall, they finished the season really strong. I think, and based on what everybody's saying around the league, Flores is a really respected head coach. He's going to be one of the top candidates for the job for any other team in the league right now. So I'm ecstatic about it because I think the Dolphins had a really good head coach who coached one of the top defenses in the league with not a lot of talent on their team, minus the cornerbacks, which were really good, and Holland stepping up. But I thought they just fired a good coach, and I think they're trending. At first they were upwards. I was nervous about Flores. I was nervous about anything Tua. Obviously, Tua is disappointed, but now they're back down to being kind of a joke. So I'm ecstatic about it. Like, I think he's a good coach, and now they're going to hire. I wish they hired Harbaugh because again, I think he's more. I think he's more substance. I think he's more bark than bite type guy, and I think he'll kind of bring in a clown show too. So, but obviously, it's not going to happen now apparently. So, yeah, I think it's a mistake for them, but great for us.
Yeah, I wonder who they go with. There were rumors last year, and I don't know if the guy signed an extension. The coach from Florida. I don't know if they would go with. Was it Florida? I think it's Florida. Oh God, who the hell was Trask's head coach?
I'm not good with college stuff. I suck with college
Yeah,
stuff.
God, his name was kicked around a little bit for us, but it wasn't someone that I considered. Yeah, I don't know where they go. It's going to be interesting to see. I'm glad that he's gone. I think Watson's out of the division for good, or not out of the division. He was never in the division, but I'm glad they're not getting him in the division. I would love to see Tua there long term, and I do think whatever coach they get is going to be wind up being worse than Flores. So I'm happy.
Yeah, me too. And now we all have because we were
Dan Mullen, that's the name.
We were like really linking up Watson to Miami, and we're like, God damn it! Like now we have Watson, Josh Allen, he's
going to Carolina. He's going to Carolina.
Carolina. I think to be honest, for me, like personally, if I was a quarterback right now and just looking at like some of the teams who need quarterbacks, I don't think you can put anybody above Denver and Pittsburgh right now. Pittsburgh has a lot of talent, really stable organization, and Denver has a ton of talent. Like look at Matt Rule and they're getting rid of Joe Brady, and they have a lot of questions in Carolina right now. And did you see him answer the question about Darnold this
I didn't see it, but Rule is in Rule was someone I wouldn't have been shocked if they decided to move on from.
They asked a question about either Darnold moving forward or picking up his 5th-year option, and it's like a 30-second clips, and he was like he said probably for 15 seconds. He's like it's a decision that we all came together on and it's already done. And I was like, yeah, they're not happy with Darnold. It was good job trading a 2nd, a 4th, and a 6th for a guy who absolutely sucked. It was all over the film, but people didn't want to listen. So he's terrible, and they're going to be stuck with him. And they passed on Fields, they passed on Mac Jones. So good luck with that,
dude. So Watson. I mean, I don't think Rodgers gets moved anymore. I think he winds up staying in Green Bay. I think Wilson, Russell, if he's traded, I think goes to the Giants. Watson to Denver makes a lot of sense. Dude, you know what team could really use an elite level quarterback that I think is kind of almost knocking on the door, but they're not going to do it? And that's the Browns. I think the Browns are in a weird situation with Baker Mayfield, and I don't hate Baker, but if they got someone like Watson, that team is friggin' loaded.
I hate Baker. I do.
See, I wanted Baker that draft. I was like, oh, dude, I was so bummed when they took him one. Then I was happy we got Sam.
It's that's another example of more bark than bite. He talks a lot of shit about doing a lot of things. I know as a Browns fan, with him in his rookie year, doing all the commercials he did and talking all the trash he did, I wouldn't be happy. And I was in the position, even before the season, they talking about him getting an extension. Oh yeah, give him an extension, give him that big extension. And I was not on that board at all. And you're looking at a team. I know he's injured this year, but you're talking about one of the top 10 offensive lines in the league. I would say the best 1-2 running back punch in the league with Kareem Hunt and Chubb. They're both starting level running backs, legitimately a solid receiver group.
You had OBJ, you had
OBJ, Landry, you have what's his name?
Higgins.
No, there's another. I think it's the other Higgins is on Rashad Higgins, maybe, is it? Or maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's Higgins on the Browns. So you have Hooper, you have Njoku, you have a stout defense that's absolutely loaded, and the fact that they finished 7 or 8 and 9. Did they finish 8 and 9? I think it was 8 and 9.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, 8 and 9. They're really, really disappointing. So, yeah, I for them, if they can land a quarterback like that, they're the most ready team. You probably, in my opinion, it's probably Browns, Broncos, Steelers right now in terms of the best 3 teams who need quarterbacks. Colts are probably up there too, but they're not going to get away from Carson Wentz because he's a big deal for next year. And he sucks. Carson Wentz is terrible. I was watching that game, I had a parlay on him too. And in my head, before I put them in my parlay, I was like, I can never trust. There's 2 things, a couple teams and a couple people I don't trust. Wentz is one of them. And I was like, I don't trust Wentz at all. And I do not like betting on division games. I rarely do it. Bet on Wentz and division game, got screwed in a parlay. And I knew I shouldn't have done it. So
what kills me is the whole, if the Jets were to have lost to the Jaguars now that everything's all shaked out, we would have had number 1 overall.
Yeah, it is what it is. You can't really predict that stuff. They both won and all this stuff. And for me, I was more on the fence. in terms of like the win versus the loss. Like I get the whole win aspect. I didn't get it with Gase because nobody's gonna be back next year anyway. But like now that it's Wilson and Michael Carter and McCarr II, all these guys, like, okay, give them a win. Like I'm okay with it. So yeah, it is what it is. Maybe now they get Hamilton at 4, and he's much better than Hutchinson ever is at 2. So like you never know how stuff works out. So
sure. Guys, we have reached the end of our stream. We gave all our grades. I'm going to link timestamps if you're just tuning in later on down below on the first pinned comment, or I guess the only pinned comment. I can't have 2. So that'll be down there. I'm trying to hide my burps right now as I'm doing this. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. If you haven't seen Joe before, Joe is part of Jets X Factor. All the links for Jets X Factor and Joe's Twitter are down below in the description. Make sure you follow him. He'll be on the show. He's on basically once a month here. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. Let everyone know where they can find you and let them know what you got going on.
Yeah, I see Jeremy saying he's going to eat a tablespoon of some type of really hot sauce. I have this. It's like the end, and it's Carolina. It's like all Carolina Reaper and something else.
That's a pain. That's just
the one in Virginia was like a challenge, and I got a shirt for it. It was like progressively hard, and the last one was the end, and it was like all Carolina Reapers. Ridiculous, but I did it because I'm an asshole.
There you go.
So yeah, Jets X Factor, the film reviews. I talk a lot of film and stuff on here and reference it. Just go watch it. If that's up to you. If you want to learn about the players, I feel like that's the best way to actually know them is to watch them and really learn about that stuff. So Jets X Factor, find me on there. 𝐗-𝐅𝐵 31 on Twitter. I'm gonna start. I kind of leaned away from doing a lot of stuff on Twitter because I hate Twitter, but I'm gonna start putting a little bit more stuff on Twitter and interacting a little bit more there. And then other than that, follow the live stream I do on Thursday night, usually at 6 o'clock. And then Green Bean, I'm going on Green Bean show on Thursday at 8 o'clock, 8 to 9. I'm going to be on Green Bean show. So check out that too.
I love it. Guys, thank you so much for flying with us tonight. If you're jumping out of this stream, make sure you hit a like on the way out. I love your faces. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. My name's Ryan. I've been your pilot. This is Jets Talk signing off. J-E-T-S